What's a taboo word that starts with P? And no, it's not poop. It's porn. And today, my very special guest and I are going to take a deep and very informative dive into this subject, including whether or not you may have an addiction to it. So stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Men on Fire. My name is Mike Aren, a former mechanic and engineer turned transformational teacher. And each week, I'll deliver an inspiring message to help you excavate those repressed inner negative feelings and install new thoughts that will finally allow you to truly become the person you were born to be. Welcome to another episode of Men on Fire here on Soul Mechanic TV and Soul Mechanic Radio. I have a very special guest on Men on Fire today, and we're going to talk about what some consider to be a taboo subject: porn. Porn, in some form or another, has been around for as long as there has been humans on this earth. But not until recent times has it proliferated so deeply into our culture and society. But what does the evidence actually say about how porn may or may not be affecting people? Can research provide any answers? The truth is that it is a difficult question for scientists to study and answer. And so to help me maneuver through the nuances of this topic is my very special guest, Matthew Sinkovitz. Now, Matt has been a practitioner and teacher of personal and spiritual development for over a decade. And Matt began his studies in Buddhism and New Thought as a young adult, seeking resolution to his own personal life dilemmas. Overcoming his 20-plus year compulsive relationship with porn, Matt was inspired to share his journey and support other men in their path to liberation. And through his online Facebook support community, Making Peace with Porn, Matt currently runs the 90-day liberation boot camp, as well as the 10-day porn abstinence challenge. Matt is passionate about the community's commitment to support men in ending their toxic relationship with porn so they can reclaim their power and create a life worth living. Okay, welcome back, folks. And today, as promised, we have our very special guest, Matthew Sinkovic, and he is a specialist in many things spiritual, and also works as a porn addiction counselor. And he's here today to help us out discovering if we maybe have an issue with that, or if we do, what could we do, what the signs are, and we're going to talk about that right now. So, Matt, maybe you could go back and give us a little bit about your upbringing. I understand it's you were brought up in some of the Christian faith, and also have touched on the Buddhist side as well. And maybe you could just go through that quickly and let us know how that maybe affected how you handled your porn addiction, and also how it could help others, either positively or maybe negatively even.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and it's good to be here. So I grew up in the Christian faith, in the Christian tradition. Going to church 4 days a week, growing up in the Pentecostal church, and revival was going on all around me, and grew up doing missions work and prison work with my family. And some of my earliest memories were visiting inmates with my parents in prisons. And my mom still runs a large Christian prison ministry. Nice. Nonprofit. Yep. Mm-hmm. And when I was a kid, I went with my mom and a group of missionaries to China. We smuggled Bibles into China, actually. And I was like 13 years old. So got a real education and really close exposure to church and to Christianity as an early age. And I found myself, I had a lot of unanswered questions, I think, though. Spiritually. Sure. and throughout my younger years. And a lot of things maybe just didn't sit quite right with me, or felt a little incongruent maybe. And I found myself mid-20s in a really dark place, depressed place. It was around that time. It was, I would say, like end of high school through my mid-20s. I kind of walked away from church pretty much, altogether.
Right.
There's a drift there, which I think a lot of people probably experience, just kind of going off on my own path, a young adult. And yeah, I found myself in a really dark place and suicidal, unhappy, obsessive thinking, didn't like myself. And it was around that time that I was really just not wanting to live and was really desperate for a solution, for a way out, and felt a real victim to my mind, and to myself. And it was around that time I just began exploring meditation and mindfulness, and that ultimately led me to my Buddhist path. And to this day, I still study Christian principles, probably even more so than I study, Buddhist principles. I'm still very much a student of Christ and the teachings of Christ. I think I just kind of have a broader, probably more universal, maybe more new age perspective of the teachings of Christ, and I see Christ as, just much like Buddha, Christ as more of a way shower,
I totally agree.
Than maybe a savior, pointing back at us, saying we have to be our own savior, and same as Buddhism. So I find Buddhism to be very complementary to Christianity, and I still very much consider myself an interfaith man to this day. I'm an ordained Buddhist minister, and I do work in prisons and hospitals. I just spent a year doing a residency, interfaith chaplaincy residency at a large level 1 trauma center area here in our area. So I still kind of ride that, and I really honor the unique paths and faith beliefs and traditions of all. I think there's truth in it all. I think at the end of the day, we're all looking up, praying to the same God,
Absolutely.
And so my early exposure to Christianity and religion, though there was a point in my life it really turned me off. It really ultimately gave me a really, I think, a foundation for relationship with God and for spirituality and familiarity with how to kind of navigate that conversation and that way of life. And it gave me good, I think, foundational principles and qualities and characteristics and values. And I think it really what's the best way? It fertilized the soil, maybe, or tilled the soil for the work that I'm doing today,
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It gave me a good foundation for all that, and offered me the opportunity to begin exploring the questions about God at an early age, and still very valuable, still very close to my heart today,
Absolutely. Yeah. So you did end up having or going through, I should say, a porn addiction, correct?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So how did either your Christian faith or Buddhist faith at that time period, how that overlapped, I'm not sure, but did they help you out? Did you discover them even more deeper because of you needed help in that regard, or how did that help?
Yeah. So growing up, the conversation around sex was really kind of an awkward conversation. I didn't get to explore it much. The exploration I did do was on my own, or with my friends, and magazines.
Well, it's pretty taboo. My parents
normal,
never
right?
talked to me about it at all.
Exactly. So sex was always a weird thing, between that and the void of that conversation in my own life, and just some early childhood sexual experiences that I had, and just a lot of questions, and I think confusion, sexually, and probably just misguided sexually, and sexually repressed in a lot of ways, probably not a lot of opportunity to really discuss it or explore it, and just awkward sexually, which I think so many of us experience. And it is a taboo subject in dogmatic, religious settings, so for me, I just kind of found myself adrift there, and got into porn at an early age. For myself, I was lucky because I'm not like a lot of these kids today, where I grew up with that phone in my pocket,
Exactly.
which is troublesome for me. I had to score a Penthouse or a Playboy magazine, or
For sure.
my friend had a videotape, or stumbled across something in the neighborhood, or whatever,
right.
So I wasn't introduced to the internet and all that stuff until it came around that I was in high school, my senior year or so in high school, we got a computer in the home, which is really exciting. And that was really kind of my first introduction to the buffet of porn options that are, that was the start of it anyway. And so I think I had a good head start. I'm fortunate in that way. But yeah, got into it. And it's one of these things that it begins innocently.
Oh, absolutely.
We begin and we're, it's curious and it's exciting and it's new and feels, we don't have any concern about it, because just, it's like a drug as a young kid. It still is. It is to this day like a drug,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I found myself in that, and I had this relationship with porn up through my late teens, early 20s, into my 20s, into my professional career. Something that always stayed with me, and into my 30s. Into my 30s, and it was something that I began to recognize was like at some point unhealthy. And had this adverse effect on my life. It had this adverse effect on me emotionally, spiritually, sexually, professionally, in my relationships, everything, man, energetically. And I think as I probably grew in awareness, grew in consciousness, grew in who I was, I just kind of began to wake up to the impact that it was having in my life.
Right.
Also, to the unhealthy quality of it. It's not like that for everybody, Some people are able to maintain a healthy relationship with it. It's just periodic. But for some of us, it's like a drug. It's like the same way some people can't drink just a beer,
Yeah.
Some people just aren't able to maintain a healthy relationship with porn either because they overconsume it, or it's just has this adverse effect on us, maybe spiritually or emotionally or psychologically.
Definitely.
So I began recognizing that it was having this adverse effect, but I also began to recognize that because of this, I would like try and quit, and I would say I was done with it. And I would have these real moments of clarity, and I was sure I was done with it, but I would continue to return to it.
Right.
So I think the unhealthy nature of it, plus the fact that I continued to try and quit, but I had this compulsive relationship with it, I recognized it was a problem for me. And it's one of these things that we do our best to deal with on our own for so long, because of the nature of it. There's a lot of shame around it as a taboo subject. We feel very much alone in the journey. It's very much a prison in many ways. So for me, I've also for the past decade really been heavily investing in coaches and mentors, and really digging in and doing the deep work spiritually and personally. So I kind of recognized for me that a coach was a good solution. So I ended up hiring and putting a couple $1,000s down in a group coaching program and worked with the coach and got into community, got into accountability, learned the skills, did the deep work around awareness, and got to the root of it, and got to the other side of it, thankfully. But yeah, it was definitely a 20+ year addiction, and it just continued to get worse, man. The genres get increasingly graphic, and and the effects of it seem to get increasingly detrimental. And it doesn't go in a healthy direction, man. So yeah, definitely no stranger to the path, brother.
No, it's almost like a gateway drug almost into getting more and more involved in maybe other things. I remember, I was fairly sexual active like in my early teens. So I had kind of discovered that, with another teenager, a girl. And so I kind of figured that stuff out as you go along, but then, that you're not with somebody all the time. So there's cravings then, of course, and in your teens. And, to coin a phrase, the wind blows and your dick gets hard almost, so it's one of those things. So obviously a lot of time, many men obviously resort to masturbation, especially during those times as well. And I was wondering what you thought, perhaps, what's the difference maybe between masturbating, having thoughts of someone in your mind, or maybe even looking at, for example, a picture of something. Like I remember looking at Sears catalogs and going my cousin from Germany was over and we were looking at them, and I think I was 12 or 13, I think, and looking at the bra section and going like, wow, and then I didn't know why, but I was starting to get aroused, but I had no idea what I was really looking at or what I was doing. I just knew that I was having some kind of feeling while I was looking at this stuff. So I don't know if you feel maybe what the difference is maybe between just healthy masturbation over the porn addiction.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if there's an exact answer to it. I think at the end of the day, you have to look at your own personal experience with it and the impacts of it, and the effects. In our community, I'm a very kind of liberal guy, and I think that's healthy, for people to be able to explore their sexuality in healthy ways and explore their body in healthy ways and, experiment. And, so we're not really uptight in that sense in our community. What we really identified as the unhealthy piece of the puzzle is this compulsive relationship with pornography. So in our work that we do, like in our program, in our process with guys, we don't maybe encourage it, but we say that, like, healthy masturbation, as long as it's not compulsive,
Right.
I think is fine, in the process. Definitely healthy sexual connection with the partner, in a loving, intimate way, I think is healthy. So we encourage that, man. We really identified that porn is the unhealthy piece of the puzzle, and compulsive porn use combined with compulsive masturbation, either of those, I think could be generally unhealthy or toxic. So just to kind of specifically, your question was around healthy forms of masturbation. I think that's definitely possible. And in our process, we figure anything you have to do to not relapse and go back to the pornography, whatever you got to do, if you got to chew on the table leg or, take care of yourself, I think that's fine. But it's the porn that really seems to be the problematic piece of the puzzle, so.
Oh, definitely. And for the people that are listening, and I have a fair amount of female followers too, and I think the podcast is Men on Fire, and really trying to help men that constantly suppress their their feelings and energies, and not, because we're programmed, we're told not to show them, got to be a man's man and just suck it up and all those sorts of things. So I think when we can let that stuff out and maybe we replace that with other things that will help us develop a healthy balance, is what I'm kind of all about. But I have a good healthy female following too, and I think it's maybe they're wondering, trying to get some tips on how they can help their guy, as well.
Yeah.
So just wondering whether do you have you seen, like, or where do you think you start falling off the cliff? Like, what are some of the signs for people that are maybe in that position themselves, or people that know somebody, or observing somebody, maybe a partner of that person, where they could be the first signs maybe that they have some kind of porn addiction?
And that's a good question. First and foremost, this would only be one that someone would have to really be honest with themselves and really reflect deeply about. It was kind of like speaks to my journey, beginning to recognize, like, is it having a negative impact in your life somehow? Or like after a porn and masturbation session, are you experiencing feelings of shame, guilt, remorse, fear, anxiety, loss of energy, loss of momentum, depression? Is it having like an adverse psychological or emotional impact?
Yeah,
so I think that's the first one.
Constructive.
Yeah, man. Are you missing work? Are you masturbating during the day and then you're not wanting to connect with your partner at night?
It's really controlling you then, isn't it?
Yeah. Are you in a leadership position and you kind of know that porn is out of integrity with you, and you're not showing up as the leader that you want to be, or you've got this kind of skeleton in your closet? Are there personal, emotional, psychological, maybe physical, energetic impacts that you can, if you're being honest with yourself, you can recognize are having an impact in your life? So that would be one. Like, if you're just being honest with yourself, are you noticing a negative effect? That's the first, right? But then beyond that, I think there are a couple other key signs that we've identified that are just good, clear markers. Another one is, have you tried to quit and you continue to return? Have you told yourself that I'm done with this? I'm not going back. Yuck, it's
Hmm.
gross. It's disgusting. This is not the kind of guy I want to be. This is taking me in weird places, but you continue to go back, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah,
That's another good indicator. Another great indicator is it something that you're having to hide in your life?
exactly.
That's another big one. If your partner picked up your phone right now, would you be okay with what they found? Are you having to hide your relationship with porn? Are you having to sneak off? Are you having to lie about it? Are you having to stay up late at night about it? While your partner's sleeping, and if they're up and you're startled and you're stirring. It's like, so is there a hidden component to it as well? I think that's another good
Hmm.
indicator as well. Yep.
Hmm. Hmm. No, definitely. And how you feel about it, directly, after that too. Perhaps, do you feel guilt that, you may have a partner, whoever that is, and, do you feel guilty in doing that, um, when maybe you should be saving it for being with
Yeah.
them?
Yeah. And just to add to that, I think it's really important to distinguish, because a lot of us grow up with just weird sexual ideas and feelings around sex in general. And
Hmm.
maybe someone who grew up in a really religious, dogmatic setting, maybe they feel guilty for having sex just because they've been told it's bad, you know?
Right.
So I think it's important to distinguish that, it's not just I'm experimenting, I'm exploring myself sexually, I'm expressing myself sexually, and I've got this inherent guilt that I've been conditioned with. I think it's important to distinguish that between, like, this is just not the person I want to be. I don't want to be stuck in my bedroom till 3 o'clock in the morning looking
Hmm.
at stuff that really doesn't even align with what I truly desire in life. Or maybe I'm looking at really obscene or graphic stuff, and it's kind of going in a direction that I know on a heart level is just unhealthy or out of alignment for me,
Hmm.
or I'm spending hours and hours on this or being unproductive. I think it's important to really distinguish the difference there.
Oh, no, no, definitely, definitely. And, um, I think that, I mean, my feeling is, about, spiritual energy. I mean, we are energy beings. I mean, everything is made out of energy, from the universe, and that's well proven scientifically. We don't have to go into any depth there, as well. That, we are all energy, and energy flows through us, and, from in and around us, and that, as we talked about earlier, higher source, whatever you want to call that, of energy, whether it's, God, or many of ways, or names that we've had for that over the thousands and thousands of years. But that energy, does it get? Do you think, when someone has a porn addiction, and because it's addictive, they're constantly going back to it all the time, and getting, mentally, the pictures and stuff get ingrained in your mind, and it's always there. Do you think that kind of cuts off that, not cut it off, but I mean, maybe the connection gets rusty almost, from a spiritual perspective, your energy
I
that
do.
you derive from the universe, and
I
then it's
do.
tough to get that back.
Yeah. Well, I do think that it could be maybe corroded, yeah, or cut off. I'm with you, Mike. I think that energy is always infinitely, abundantly available to us. There's nothing that can stop it. All we have to do is allow it. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think if we're engaging in toxic behaviors, then yeah, that channel or that connection could become corroded. Just like if we were drinking a lot, or doing
Absolutely.
drugs a lot, or
Yeah, same
eating
thing.
really eating really unhealthy food a lot. We have unhealthy relation. So I think anything could kind of corrode that, stifle that, or numb us to that.
Hmm.
But I think we're always tapped in, we're always connected, and it's always available. So much of our work is just uprooting that toxic relationship with porn and getting the porn out of there. And it's really amazing to see the way the guys just rebound
Hmm.
energetically, spiritually, emotionally,
I bet you.
psychologically, when we just create that abstinence, because that river is always flowing and it's always available. It always wants to come through. Our job is to be a clear channel for it.
I'm sure it must be almost like, seeing them with the walking around the big negative sign, and now there's a positive sign almost, like the energy's flowing through them again.
Yeah, man, they're connected to their purpose, and just more attractive, their partner is warming up to them, and their partner can just kind of notice their energy is different, and they're showing up and they're lighter and they're brighter and they're more clear, and yeah, it's really interesting to see that resurgence of that just natural energy. It's like that life begins to flow again, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I've experienced that in doing some life and business coaching as well, mainly in life coaching, where people, the light bulb comes on and then they start to get it, and as it sinks in, and you meet them next time and they got a huge smile on their face, like it's just so uplifting. And I'm sure you're like me, and that's the reason we do that stuff. That's
brother, that's what it's all about.
That's the thanks right there. We don't need any other thanks. Actually, I'm getting a little bit of chills just thinking about it. But if let's talk about sexual energy. So my belief is that it's all energy. The part of the energy that we're receiving is the same as the sexual energy. It's just that we are programmed beings, physical beings from way back that to reproduce. That's part of the male directive, and that's why we get we have all that attraction for that. So I'm just wondering if sexual energy then and spiritual energy are one of the same, and I know it's difficult because of in society or peers or a lot of religious scenarios, we're told that's not good for us, that's bad, don't do that. And then of course, when you're a teenager, when you're bucking authority, you're going to do what you're told not to do, right? So I just want how you felt about the sexual energy part with going with the spiritual energy part.
Yeah. Well, we're always guessing at these things, right? It's kind of really just based upon our own experience and what our own perception and interpretation of these things are, but my experience is there's definitely a correlation. You look at like maybe like Tantra or something like that, which is a spiritual practice, but also, a very, very much a sexual practice and expression as well. And I think there are ways we can use sexual energy to, harness and focus ourselves spiritually. It's like, I know there's like a whole range of ways you can connect sexually and have sex, everything from, making love to fucking, and there's the full range of it. I know that whenever I'm really connected, spiritually with, sexually with someone, like, that's a very spiritual experience, I also know when I'm off spiritually, there's an impact there sexually, you know what I mean? And I think both ways. I think whenever I'm off spiritually, there's a kink in the hose, that shows up sexually, so 100%, again, my relationship with porn definitely was creating spiritual kinks in the hose, that dysfunction sexually was blocking me. It felt as though I was kind of blocking me from source, from my purpose, from the work I was being called to do. It was blocking up my spiritual evolution in ways, I felt that. And I knew inherently I had to get that resolved. So yeah, I would definitely say there's a connection. I think there's a connection in all things,
Oh, no, definitely. Because I feel that people deny sexual energy to become more spiritual sometimes. Like, let's say, just for example, a Catholic priest where, you're not supposed to do any kind of sexual things with anybody else. Of course, we know that's backfired in many cases, unfortunately. But it's the same thing goes the other way too, where you cut off the sexual or the spiritual energy because you're going too far down the sexual energy path.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So it's the same thing as, like you mentioned, people with other addictions or whatever, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or food, or sugar, or buying shoes, or whatever that is. We keep ourselves so damn busy because we don't want to face up with what we feel is uncomfortable in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So we just keep doing that all the time and stay busy and attached to that. And while we do that, we make it through. But when we're alone with ourselves and we don't know what to do, it's we start to fall back into that pattern again, because we know in the moment it makes us feel good in the moment. I mean, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, the
right?
low-hanging fruit, I like to call it.
Right, exactly. And it doesn't, as soon as you're done, and you're satisfied sexually, then you're going like, oh, well, what do I do now?
Yeah. Right.
That was quick. It doesn't make
Right.
me feel any better half an hour from now.
Worse, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Then comes all the other emotions that you mentioned as well.
Yeah.
So if people that are listening to this podcast have discovered themselves, or someone that they know that's close to them maybe has a porn addiction, what constructive actions do you suggest that maybe they should take? Just total avoidance, discuss it with them, maybe see if they needed to get help, pointing towards maybe your groups and that sort of thing, or how do you feel?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, just to be clear, you're asking if someone was in a partnership, or they had someone in their life that was dealing with it, or if you just asking what someone should do personally if they were dealing with it?
Either way, yeah, it could be themselves. How do you think, or if they're a partner of somebody that knows what's kind of going on, and how do they help?
Yeah. Interestingly, it's like if you were in a partnership with somebody and you knew that they had this issue going on, first of all, you're probably not going to know the extent of it, because it's a very hidden kind of thing. You might have a glimpse or some clues. But the thing is, you really can't, it's like trying to make a drug addict change. You really can't force the issue, I don't think. I think the best thing you could do is obviously maybe confront it if you feel it were an issue, but do so lovingly and understandingly, and make it a safe conversation. And just be willing to open and to listen, and to make and to create the safe space for them to be able to discuss it, and not feel as though it's something they have to hide. Beyond that, man, I think pushing the issue, or trying to point someone, or trying to get them help, or get them to go see somebody, it's like the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink kind of thing.
Exactly.
I think just creating an open, loving, understanding, safe container to discuss that, and also drawing the line too, if it's really dysfunctional and unhealthy, not tolerating the behavior as well, if it's a dysfunctional relationship.
No, absolutely.
So that's, I think that's one thing. But yeah, personally, if you're listening to this podcast, and you kind of, some of these things are resonating with you, and you kind of have this hunch that, I do kind of recognize it's unhealthy for me, or it is causing some dysfunction in areas of my life, or it is something I have to hide in my life, or I have told myself I wanted to quit, and here I am again. If you can kind of relate to any one of those things, and maybe you suspect, but you're not really sold on it yet, or maybe you just know. I think one of the first things you can do is get into community. Getting around other people that are having this conversation, where it is a safe place to have this conversation. It's a very lonely journey, this relationship around pornography and sexuality.
Definitely.
Because of just the nature of it in our society. It's like the most basic, fundamental, part of us, the part of us that is responsible for all of us being here, is often the least talked about thing, in society, and the weirdest, most awkward conversation to have. But getting into community, and just kind of beginning to see that there are others on this path, on this journey, normalizing the conversation, bringing that which has been in the darkness for so much of our life into the light. And I think it's just healthy in that regard, and just kind of getting around others that are on this path, and finding camaraderie and support and community around that. So I think that's the first thing to begin to do.
Definitely.
Taking an honest inventory of yourself, kind of reflecting upon some of these things that we've presented here today, some of the ways in which you might begin to explore this for yourself. See if you can go a week or 5 days. We offer a porn abstinence challenge in our community. See if you can cut it out for 5 days, and if you can, notice the difference. I'll suspect that you'll find greater sense of energy, a potency in life, more confidence, a healthier relationship with yourself. I'm sure, and I think the ultimate thing one can do is to get professional help. Find a coach, find a mentor, find someone who's been down the path and is leading others and successfully uprooting this and getting this behind themselves, for good, so.
No, I agree. And, I think we've come to the point that people realize coaches aren't just for, sports and musicians or something like that, or singers. I think anybody or everybody needs a coach in whatever you want to get better at.
Right.
Whatever that happens to be, and or help dealing with issues that you're having, right? So I think that'd be a very good thing for help somebody do that. Now, you do have a Facebook group too, I believe, and just wondering maybe if you can go over some of the things that you can offer people that maybe recognize that they would like to have some extra help in solving some of the issues with porn.
Yeah, sure. So I run a private men's only Facebook community. It's called Making Peace with Porn. If you were to look it up, it's Making Peace with Porn. We are noble men, and it's we're about 700 members presently at the time of this recording. Got men from all over the globe doing this work and joining in this conversation. We deal specifically around the conversation around pornography, but we're also very much a personal and spiritual development community. We really believe in helping the man grow and evolve. And through that work, leaving the porn behind just becomes kind of a natural part of the process, just like we've left other habits and behaviors and other parts, behind. Amen. So, yeah, brother. So we're focused on the growth and the evolution of the man. And we also do the specific work around the pornography, which definitely needs to be dealt with, So that's our community. We're an interfaith community. Everyone that's, if you're a man of character, you're welcome. And it's discreet. I really vet everybody that comes in there. It's not just a bunch of weird people. It's real people, real cool profiles. We want to make sure men in there are men of integrity, and it's a good, healthy container to have this conversation. So I'd recommend checking us out there. Again, it's private, so only members can see who's a member. In there, we do several times a year. We're looking at doing them more regularly. These 5-day porn abstinence challenges, where we challenge the men to 5 days of abstinence, as I mentioned here today. We do, trainings in the community. That's a free challenge currently. So you can join in, and lots of cool shifts and awareness and, insights had there. And one of our guys, he's done the challenge, 4 or 5 times now. And he's now over a year porn free, just from the challenges. He's never even joined one of our coaching programs, but the work just stuck with him. Cool. He stays engaged in the community. So that's really possible as well. And then we have, of course, higher levels of support if you're really looking to really dig in and make a powerful commitment around this as well, which I can share if you like as well. So.
Yes, and for the listeners, I will provide all the links for all those things that Matt mentioned, so you'll be able to check that out as well. And some of your work in the prisons, do you work with the porn addictions in prisons too, or?
I don't.
It
comes up. As I mentioned, I've been involved in prison work. I've been around prison work since a youngster. So I haven't been back in since COVID, because things have gotten weird getting into those places since. They just until recently they totally shut all visitation down. But most recently when I was in there in an interfaith capacity. I was like the Buddhist guy, but anywhere I go, I'm never like the Buddhist guy with the Buddhist robe on and that on my sleeve. I'm really like the interfaith guy. I'm like the guy, if you're interested in just kind of, maybe some people kind of identify like I'm religious, I'm spiritual but not religious kind of people. The ones that kind of fall into that category, I'm like the catch-all guy, so we just honor everyone's tradition and path and unique perspective and whatever that might mean to them. But I am in there in the Buddhist capacity. So in there we're holding meditation groups and weekly meditation, and we get into all the spiritual conversation, whatever it might mean for you, whatever's relevant for you. And we're also I also serve as the spiritual like a spiritual counselor as well. So I'll see you guys one-on-one if they request me as well, and women, as a matter of fact. And that most recently, that work's been done in our local county prison here.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I definitely slant more towards interfaith stuff myself as well. Just because, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, I mean, we're all we're all connected. We're all here. We're all from the same source. So,
Amen, brother. Yeah.
and you can put labels on stuff, but they are just labels. Just like my name Mike is a label. It's not
Yeah,
who
brother.
I am, but
Yes.
it is a way for me to pay taxes. I mean, it's
Yeah. Right.
it's a way that we get along. It's almost like using money as a a form of currency. So your
Yes.
name is your currency too, right? So
Yes.
and we need to just get along with all of that. But
Yeah.
that's for maybe a different show. But anyway, I really want to thank you for being here today, Matt, and disclosing all that, because I know that many men have issues with porn. Like you said, it's a lot of closet type thing, and I don't mean just physically in the closet, but they're keeping it quiet and don't think they have an issue, and until maybe it gets too far and it starts affecting them and their lives and their families' lives, spouses and children and everybody around them. So it's well worth that they check out your Facebook site and all the connections that I'll leave here, and links for them to check out if they feel they have that. And if you don't want to check it out now, check it out later whenever the calling comes to you to do that. Then
Yep.
you should do that. But I really appreciate you being here and explaining all that to us. I learned a lot, and I'm sure all my listeners did too. And I want to thank you once again for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being a great host and creating the space, brother, and serving the community that you're serving. And yeah, it's an honor, brother. Thanks so much.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Matt. And hopefully we'll connect again very, very soon.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. As always, keep what feels good and dump what doesn't. And remember, live without judgment, give without expectation, and love for no reason. Follow those 3 simple expressions, and you'll be well on your way to an inspirational, intentional, and successful life. Until next time, you're the one.